And we're back for another season of The Hills Are Alive, a movie musical podcast.
Well, we're almost back for another season.
Yes, this is what we would consider a bonus episode before we really get started. But we did want to give you some Halloween content, some holiday content to get us started.
Just in time for spooky season.
We wanted to get some spooks in here real quick. This week we're going to do The Nightmare Before Christmas.
A classic. A modern classic.
A modern classic. I mean, at this point, isn't this like the 30th anniversary?
Come
out in 91.
1993 is when it came out.
I thought it came out in 91.
93.
Hold up.
Do you want to bet on it?
You're right. I think because I was watching this last night. There's a show on Disney Plus called Prop Culture.
Yeah, I've watched a couple episodes of that.
And there is an episode about this. But I guess I was thinking 91 because a lot of the development happened in 91.
It took them 3 years to complete the film.
Well, they're doing it frame by frame.
I know. It's crazy.
The amount of work that must have involved is insane to me.
Do you remember that episode of Parks and Rec where Ben was laid off or he quit his job and he decides he's going to make like a claymation or a stop motion film?
And he's worked on it for like hours and days and he has like 1 second.
Yeah, it's nothing. And he's like, I worked so hard. Yeah, it takes real patience and dedication.
Yeah.
To one's craft to do a movie like this.
And one thing that was really interesting to me about this episode of this show is that a lot of the characters had some of the characters had like different faces they could pop on to like move. Like they had a different face for each movement of their face.
Yeah, for Jack, they had over 400 different.
They had whole heads.
Yeah. For every expression and every, I think they said we did A-E-I-O-U.
Yeah.
Happy, sad, neutral, etc.
They said there were 400, yeah.
And then Sally had a mask.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to mess up her hair.
And the mayor had different faces, but like you could see. I thought it was cool that when they would like leave in little things like that, you can see like the outline of the mayor's face where they like pop the face off and off.
Yeah, but I think that was he was supposed to look like, I think, a mechanical like figure of sorts.
Right.
So before we really jump in, I don't think we established why this is a bonus episode.
Right.
We're actually going to start what we're going to consider our full season in November, and we're going to start in the 1930s with The Wizard of Oz, and we're going to work our way through each decade up until the 2010s, and who knows, maybe even the 2020s, but it's a little early to decide on one film for the 20s. Right.
But we will be doing, this season we'll be switching to monthly instead of, I feel like we were doing like...
Yeah.
Sometimes every 2 weeks, then sometimes it would be every 3 weeks, sometimes it would be a month. So we're going to try to just like, you know, give ourselves a break, stick to a month. Yeah, it'll be good.
Especially since we keep recording extremely long episodes. Right. I don't think anybody needs like 6 hours of content from us a month.
No.
Including myself.
Right.
Okay, so actually I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
Before we deep dive. What is your relationship to The Nightmare Before Christmas, and did Hot Topic ruin it for you too?
Goth girls ruined my life. So I actually, I kind of grew up in a Christian conservative house, and there were things that like we just didn't watch growing up. So this might be the first time I've really sat down and watched it all the way through.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Did you love it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think I might have seen it once before with JJ, like during Christmas time at some point. But I might have been partaking in the devil's lettuce at the time. So.
Alex. So I also grew up in a conservative household, though most things were not. I don't know. If something was banned, I wasn't allowed to watch it. I wasn't aware of it.
Right.
Were you guys allowed to read Harry Potter?
Well, that was a little bit later. Yes.
Yeah, you were older.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like another like 10 years after that. And, as parents get older, and like I'm the youngest, so things sort of start to...
Oh, yeah, the youngest gets away with so much more than the oldest.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But like early 90s and stuff, there was like Satanic Panic and like that kind of thing. And
so I remember I watched it at my grandmother's house. And I remember I had expressed I wanted to watch it, and my mom said no because she thought it would be too scary. Yeah. And I was probably 7, I think. Yeah. So that's reasonable.
And it is scary.
I feel like. But my grandmother, being my grandmother, was like, we'll get you whatever you want.
Yeah.
So we did rent it, and I instantly loved it.
No nightmares or anything?
No nightmares. No, I thought it was amazing. And I continued to love it for a long time until it was just like there is an oversaturation of Nightmare Before Christmas stuff for like emo and goth kids.
Yes, exactly.
For a very long time. And I became sort of embarrassed by it. You know what I mean? Like I used to have I still have a Jack Skellington Christmas ornament, and I did not hang it on my tree for a number of years. But now I'm 33. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I also think that it's sort of like rebounded back in terms of pop culture.
Right.
I don't know if it went away, but I feel like people aren't as like
I feel like it's
eye roll about it.
I feel like it's sort of in the past few years gained its status as a classic.
Yeah.
Always kind of been a cult classic, but has sort of gone into the lexicon of like classic Christmas movies.
Sure.
Even though, because I was thinking before this, like, is this truly a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie?
I think it's a Christmas movie, to be honest.
It was released
around Halloween.
Yes, it was released like 2 days before Halloween in '93.
I mean, it's just a perfect start to the season.
Yeah.
Because Halloween really launches the holiday season.
Right.
So you can really watch it at any time between October and December.
Right.
Or year round. I mean, who am I to stop you?
Right.
But I think it peaks for, a solid 3 months.
Yeah.
Those last few months of the year. But I think it's more of a Christmas movie.
Okay.
Because, like, honestly, I think it takes, like, 20 minutes for him to get to Christmastown.
Right.
And
I mean, that's the main plot of the movie.
Yeah. And the rest of the movie is, like, trying to make Christmas.
Right. Right.
But it's very spooky throughout.
Yes. And there are parts that are, like, more spooky than others.
So let's get, like, some of the basics out of the way.
Sure.
We already established it was released just before Halloween in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
The box office gross today is around 92 million.
Uh-huh.
At the time, it grossed 50 million. So over the years, it's almost, doubled what it did originally.
And its budget was 24 or something?
It was extremely low budget. Yeah. It was the lowest budget they had for any, like, Disney animated film.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, so let's talk about it being a Disney film really quick.
Right, because Tim Burton had been working for Disney for like 20 years at that point.
Was it really that long?
Maybe 15.
I know that he had one like successful short film with Disney called Vincent.
Right,
and
which was very much in the same style.
Yeah, it was a poem that he turned into a short. Mm-hmm. It was narrated by Vincent Price. Very, very apropos.
Oh, and it was based, like, wasn't it like the plot was like the kid was slowly turning into Vincent Price or something like that?
I think it was really similar to, I don't know. I've only seen it once.
Yeah.
But when I was reading the synopsis, it was sort of reminding me more of an Edgar Allan Poe type thing, where he's like sort of driving himself crazy with
Going
fear.
mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was very successful. Now, what they mean by that, I'm not sure, because I'm not sure how you measure the success of a short film. Like, where did they even show it? Yeah. But they considered it a success, and that was in the 80s.
And then
That got them talking about doing Nightmare.
And he also did Frankenweenie sometime in there as well, but I don't think that was necessarily associated with Disney.
So, so that was another short that he did, like a 30-minute special, I think.
Yeah.
That he did wind up finally releasing as a feature length.
Yeah.
Sometime,
and then
20 years later.
I think they remade it as a feature.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead. Go on.
Well, anyway, so Disney was very wary still of releasing something this dark.
Right.
So at the time, and up until pretty recently, they had Touchstone Pictures, which I'm sure is very familiar to a lot of people. I don't think I ever realized that Touchstone Pictures was just a distribution channel for Disney.
A way to release more adult things.
And some of the craziest titles, ones you would not expect, came out under Touchstone, like Signs, Gone in 60 Seconds.
Okay.
Yeah. The Royal Tenenbaums.
Oh.
So, yeah, that's wild.
Interesting.
I know. So technically, all of those are Disney movies, shockingly.
And
so yeah, they chose to release this one under Touchstone because they were just very, very fearful that the Disney audience wouldn't really get it or appreciate it.
Right.
But these days, Disney fully embraces Nightmare Before
absolutely.
Christmas.
I mean, a fun note. So me and JJ are kind of finally taking our honeymoon. So we got married in October of 2019, and it was always our plan to do a honeymoon shortly after that. But obviously, as everyone knows, in March of 2020...
Things changed.
Things changed, so we haven't really had a chance to do anything. So we are going to California. We're going
Disneyland.
Disneyland.
When?
October.
So you can go in the mansion.
Yes, exactly.
I'm so excited for you.
So the Haunted Mansion is completely rethemed as a Nightmare Before Christmas ride.
I'm jealous too.
I'm so excited.
Because they don't do it in Disney World.
No.
Not that I go to Disney World, but it'd be a heck of a lot easier to get to than Disneyland.
Right, yeah.
Yay.
So I will report back.
Do I get to come as a member of the wedding party?
Yes.
Let's keep the party going.
Yeah, well
yeah. Anywho.
Oh, I was gonna say, Tim Burton, as you said, was a Disney animator for many years before this finally came to fruition. This was something that he was kind of working on for years, but in 1980, 1981, Tim Burton was the animator for Fox in Fox and the Hound.
Oh, yeah, I did read that, which I loved Fox and the Hound.
I know, it's...
well, I love the first 10 minutes when they're little cub and puppy.
We'll be friends forever.
Yeah, I think I stopped watching the movie after that.
So there was a story that one of the people who worked on Nightmare Before Christmas was telling about, so Tim Burton was working on his sketches of the Fox and called him into the office, and he had this whole other thing set up of him workshopping Nightmare Before Christmas stuff.
Yeah.
And the first real clay model of Jack was done in 1981, 1982.
Right, and they stayed very true to his original concept.
It didn't change at all. When they showed the actual first model in this show, and it's exactly the same. And
so that's essentially why Disney billed it as Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, even though he did not direct it.
Right.
A lot of people easily make that mistake.
Yeah.
If you call it Tim Burton's, you're going to assume that he was, leading the whole thing.
And he didn't even write it.
He didn't, but I mean...
I think the overall concept was his.
There wasn't a lot of writing to do, except on the part of Danny Elfman, who composed all the music and lyrics.
But do you know who wrote the screenplay?
I do, and there's drama.
Well, she was was she married or just dating Danny Elfman at the time?
Okay, well, I don't know about that drama. I know about other drama.
Oh, okay. Well, the woman who wrote the screenplay was with Danny Elfman at the time.
And we should say her name is Caroline Thompson.
Yes. Caroline Thompson, and she was given the task of writing a screenplay. They were like, we need it now, basically. And when she had Danny Elfman read it, he was like, oh, that's not how I imagined it at all.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, it's already turned in, sorry. And They ended up loving her treatment. There were almost no edits on the screenplay. Tim Burton wrote like 2 things in the margins, and they just used it after that.
Okay, well, I don't know about that because...
Okay. And also, this is her version of the story.
Well, she'll also tell you about this part of the story. Actually, let me back up and start with what Henry Selick, the actual director, said about her. And I mean, this sounds quite shady when you put it into, well, any context, really. But he basically said, when we brought Caroline on, there wasn't much for her to do. I mean, there's just so little dialogue in between the songs, and, the main story was already there, so she was just filling in the gaps.
Yeah, it was...
Just kind of like, I mean, maybe true, but...
Whoa.
Oh, my God. What are...
he's mowing the lawn.
Fantastic. Anyways, that may be true, but still, like, you can say it in a nicer way.
Right. I mean, all she did was write all the dialogue.
Right. So, the main drama that I was alluding to that I think Caroline Thompson, I mean, she has spoken very openly about this. She had objections to the character of Oogie Boogie.
Oh.
She was worried that it would be viewed as a racist caricature because, I guess in her words, like, Oogie Boogie, number one, the character itself resembles a Klansman hood, which, I can see it, but also
just that it's a pointy head.
I feel like you have to, I don't know, I feel like it's just part of the puzzle that she's alleging.
Yeah.
She also points out, he's the only, like, black voice in the film, and they made him the villain, and then she says that Oogie Boogie is, like, a racial slur for black people, or, like, maybe boogie is.
Oh.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say that she's wrong about any of that. It wasn't where my mind went upon recognizing the character. I see it more as the boogeyman.
Right.
And I definitely never have thought of the pointy head as a Klansman hood.
Right.
Because, I mean, he's made of burlap cloth.
Right.
Now, if it was like a white sheet, I would have serious reservations.
Right, totally.
And
in that case, then Zero is really the
It's true. Henry Selick said in response that, I mean, this isn't, again, not the best response, but his response is like, well, Ken Page does the voice, and he's black, and he's cool with it.
Right.
For the record, Ken Page continues to voice Oogie Boogie in video games. Like, they did the Kingdom Hearts thing.
Yeah.
He continues to do that voice. And fun fact, Ken Page was the very first Old Deuteronomy on Broadway from Cats.
Interesting.
Yeah. He has a very good Broadway track record, musical theater track record.
And Oogie Boogie is now, like, the face of Halloween time at Disneyland.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like, there's like a big Oogie Boogie that goes over the California Adventure gates. And
like the way that he appears in the moon.
Yes. There's like, and they have like a big after hours party called the Oogie Boogie Bash.
Oh.
So
now,
that's interesting.
I should point out too that she wasn't alone in this concern. Danny Elfman also shared this concern, and it's funny now knowing that they were a couple.
Were together,
so they were probably sharing this idea amongst themselves. I couldn't figure out like why this was so specific, but he was concerned specifically that the NAACP was going to have a problem with it, and then in fact, I guess they did come out and say that they didn't appreciate the caricaturization.
Yeah.
But I couldn't actually find any statement that they had made. I found a lot of interviews and articles with Caroline talking about her concerns.
Right.
But I couldn't actually find anything from the NAACP. I mean, like, I do get it. I see what they're talking about.
Right.
I think you'd have to be willfully ignorant to not see it.
Yeah.
But I don't believe it was the intention. Of course, who cares? It's perception that...
I mean, even with intention, people have inherent...
racism.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I don't know.
And especially, like, I don't know, there's so much of, like, you know, jazz or whatever that's viewed as, like,
right.
as, like, some sort of, you know, Satan-inspired thing, which is sinful or whatever, and that's sort of obviously racist.
Well, so the jazz came from, what was his name? He was a jazz singer, Cab Calloway. They wanted to basically, I mean, they were trying to mimic him, because I guess in old Betty Boop cartoons, some of his music, the cartoon would be drawn to his music, and they would like they would overlay animation on the actual singer.
Right, yeah.
And turn him into like this big, boisterous character.
Right.
And Henry Selick said that's the idea we were going for. And like it was supposed to be jazzy, and it was supposed to be reminiscent of New Orleans. Like it was just the vibe we were going for. Does that make it not racist? No. Does it make it racist? I don't know.
Because those vibes or whatever, and the association of like jazz with
is
evil.
Black.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
One thing that Caroline, what was her last name?
Thompson?
Caroline Thompson actually did do, and I will go ahead and say that this is probably true because it was on the Disney program that they released.
Okay.
But she was responsible for Sally, basically. So Sally was at first written as kind of like a sexy vamp. Like a very like sexualized. Because, she was she was built by the doctor as a wife or whatever. So she was supposed to be very sexy and like overtly vampish. And it was Caroline Thompson who wrote her as like the different sort of like meek character that she ended up being, but with like, meek, but knew how to, stand up for things when she thought that she had to.
Yeah, I did read that they really, actually, and this relates to Oogie Boogie as well. There was a suggestion, I can't remember by whom, it was either Caroline or Henry Selick, where there's a suggestion that at the end, when they reveal what's underneath the burlap sack, that it would be Dr. Finkelstein.
Oh.
And allegedly, Tim Burton was so not okay with that, because he was just like, it comes out of nowhere. It has nothing to do with the plot. It's not been, alluded to in any way.
Yeah, it wouldn't make any sense.
Allegedly, he punched a hole in the wall.
Oh.
Over it, yeah. So they did not go in that direction. But another part of his reasoning was that Sally wasn't supposed to be like a sexual figure necessarily. Like they wanted her to come across as more of a daughter.
Yeah.
To Finkelstein than a sexual, like a sex slave, basically.
Right.
But that it's funny that you mentioned that, because I didn't hear Caroline's name brought up in any of that discussion.
Interesting.
And you know what? There was only one woman animator on the entire crew.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. It was the 90s.
They interviewed one of the animators. You should watch the special on Disney Plus and
everyone go watch the special on Disney Plus.
And because they talk a lot about the process and everything, and they talked to a bunch of the animators as well. But I mean, even though it was her who said it in the special, I tend to believe it because Disney themselves put it out.
Right.
That she was the one who made the change, but,
yeah.
Who knows?
No, I believe it too.
But, right, she does
props to Caroline Thompson.
But she does use her sexuality for good, ends up when she takes her leg off. And
yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit.
So do you want to jump into a recap?
Just a quick little recap, because not a lot happens.
I mean...
It's a short movie.
It's only just over an hour long, and, I mean... I don't blame them for it not being longer. Obviously, this is such a time-intensive process.
Right?
And it wasn't even written to be, a full length. Actually, it was... So when Tim Burton was first developing the idea, Disney had wanted to maybe make it into like a 30-minute special, like a 30-minute TV special or something like that. But they decided that it was too dark, and anyway, they had decided that it was too dark to do that, but then came back and like obviously let him do a feature length.
Yeah.
That they didn't necessarily have to put the Disney name on.
Right. Okay, so the movie begins where we just get a quick glimpse of all the different holiday worlds, and each entrance is through a tree in the forest. Mm-hmm. We have, obviously, Halloween and Christmas.
You got Easter, Thanksgiving, St. Patrick's Day. Valentine's, yes.
And then, presumably, Independence Day, because there's like a little red, white, and blue firework type thingy.
Yeah.
I think there's an equivalent type British holiday that, I don't know, somebody said it could also represent, but probably not.
Yeah. Or is it Bastille Day?
It's July 4th, guys. I'm here to say definitively it's American. So we get a brief glimpse into the holiday worlds, but we go into, obviously, the Halloween
the pumpkin door. Yes.
And that's where we get the song This Is Halloween.
Yeah.
And we just get like a little glimpse of each character,
you're
like
kind
the
of
monsters and everything.
Introduced to all the spooks.
Yeah. And it, the movie, there's so much in the visuals. Like, there's all these little hidden things to look for. I mean, it's really astounding how many different characters they came up with.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of when I watch one of my other favorite Halloween movies, which is Cabin in the Woods.
Okay.
They have, like, every different conceivable, like, horror movie villain type character in that movie.
Yeah.
And it's sort of the same thing where at some point they all merge together, and you're just constantly like, your eyes are darting trying to pinpoint like all the different creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty neat. I
think my favorite is the vampires.
The vampires are really funny. The vampires that walk around with umbrellas to shield themselves
and
from the sun.
Their voices are hilarious to me.
They are. We meet of note the mayor of Halloween Town. He's an important character. He's voiced by Glenn Shaddix, who was also in Beetlejuice. He was he was the interior decorator.
Oh, okay.
What was his name? Otto? Was it Otto? I can't remember. But anyways, another familiar face from the Tim Burton catalog.
Right.
And then we meet Sally, voiced by the incomparable Catherine O'Hara, of course.
Yes.
We meet Oogie Boogie, as we established, voiced by Ken Page. The clown with the tearaway face, that's actually Danny Elfman. And eventually we meet Jack,
who is also voiced by, his singing voice is
Danny
Elfman, and his speaking voice is what's his name?
Chris Sarandon, ex-husband of Susan. They were married, I think, like 60s and 70s. Famously,
you probably would recognize him mostly as Prince Humperdinck.
What?
From Princess Bride.
Okay, I've never seen The Princess Bride.
What?
I know. I don't like telling people that because that's how people react. But that's my one, like, you haven't seen that?
Right.
Like, that's my movie. Mm-hmm. But good to know. I didn't know he did other work, honestly. I thought he was just Susan Sarandon's ex-husband. But yeah, they cast him because his speaking voice, like, eerily matches the singing voice of Danny Elfman.
It's seamless. It's crazy.
I know. I couldn't believe that they had two different voices when I first read that.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay, so we meet everybody in Halloween Town. It's established that even though there is a mayor of Halloween Town, Jack is the de facto.
He's the Pumpkin
true
King.
Leader. Yeah, he's the Pumpkin King.
Mm-hmm. And it kind of makes it seem like that there is this like separation of, it's very British, like the mayor can't make decisions without, I don't it's like,
yeah, no, there's a line where I think it's supposed to be a joke, maybe. I took it as a joke on like elected officials never get anything done.
Right.
Because, yeah, he does shout at Jack like, I'm just an elected official. I can't make decisions on my own.
Right. Well, I guess it's the opposite in the monarchy, where the the actual monarch can't make any decisions. It's the politician that has to do it.
Look,
But
we established it's American. It's an American film.
But the mayor and the Pumpkin King have to make decisions together.
Anyway, so basically, in addition to the introductions, it's established that they are celebrating a very successful Halloween once again.
Right.
So we're starting on, I suppose, November 1st.
But Jack seems to not be satisfied with this.
He's a little bored.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
Even though it was a great Halloween, he's not really getting what he used to get from it.
Exactly. Within these few moments, it's also established, we've already really talked a little bit about Sally and her relationship to Dr. Finkelstein, who's the mad scientist character.
She is a Frankenstein's monster. She is.
Yeah. She looks like a rag doll that's been crudely stitched together.
Right.
She is not comfortable with the suppression and is constantly drugging his soup or his drink, whatever.
Yeah, she's trying to poison him over and over again.
Yeah, so that he'll just pass out and she can go off and do her thing.
So Jack kind of escapes into this graveyard where we meet Zero, his ghost dog, who comes out of his little
So this is
ghost
Jack's
dog
Lament.
grave.
The
Yes.
song is Jack's Lament.
And Sally kind of follows him and is spying on him to, making this lament.
I think she went out there to get more nightshade.
Deadly nightshade.
Deadly nightshade, yeah. But she sees Jack, and this is where it's mostly established that she does have secret feelings for Jack the Pumpkin King.
So this is Jack's lament. We've discussed what he's frustrated with. It's a repetitive existence, and he's not getting the joy out of it that he used to.
Did you know that Danny Elfman said that writing these songs in the voice of Jack Skellington was like one of the easiest jobs he ever had?
Really?
Because he related so much to Jack Skellington.
Oh yeah.
Which can be sort of like, I think you can take it kind of creepy at first, but I think he's really just saying, like, I totally get, like, going from, being successful to all of a sudden being bored and getting excited about something new, and you feel really, really high, and then it doesn't work, just the highs and the lows. Because he is a very emotional character.
I know that you're a big fan of New Wave.
I love New Wave.
So are you, like,
Oingo Boingo?
Yeah, does that also make you partial to Danny Elfman for...
Listen, when I was in high school and I wasn't tired of The Nightmare Before Christmas yet, I bought a bunch of Oingo Boingo CDs just because I wanted to know more about Danny Elfman. And I think I'm not gonna lie, I think I forced myself to listen to them a little bit. I wasn't crazy about it, but I should go back and revisit, because these were pre-New Wave days for me. This was purely to do with he was the composer on one of my favorite movies.
Right.
But you bringing up Oingo Boingo, there's a line in This Is Halloween where they refer to tender lumplings, and that's the name of an Oingo Boingo song. Yeah. I mean, that's where the reference ends, but
yeah,
he did find a way to bring in Oingo Boingo.
It was started as a theater troupe called the Mystical Knights of the Oingo Boingo. And then at some point they decided to be a rock. They called it rock, new wave, reggae band.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah.
So anyway, during this song, we get the iconic unspiraling of Spiral Mountain as he walks down.
Right. Yes. I like that Spiral Mountain. It's a short way to bring to mind exactly what we're talking about.
Well, that's what they called it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
okay.
They had a number of models that they showed during this prop show.
Gotcha.
But they had the actual, because mostly love that.
Let's just give it a second.
Okay. And he's moving away that way. So yeah, the Spiral Mountain, there are 3 or 4 different ones that they used, and actually, so the ones that they showed, they had one unarticulated regular one, the one with the articulation mechanism, and then they had another snowy Spiral Mountain.
Right. At the end.
Which they had used. They had used it as a regular one earlier in production, and once they knew that they were done doing any shots of the regular Spiral Mountain, they just sprayed it over with spray foam to make it snowy.
Okay. Ooh, yeah. That's. I bet they were nervous before they did that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jack spends the whole night walking in the woods. Meanwhile, the mayor of Halloween Town is at his house. I guess because, there's only 364 days.
You have to start planning.
Exactly. Well, if you live in Halloween Town, you got one job.
And so basically they start this like search party for him because they can't find Jack, but he's just been wandering around.
Right.
Thinking about his existence.
And all of a sudden he stumbles upon the holiday doors.
Right.
He's immediately drawn to the Christmas tree.
Right.
There's
it's
no question.
It's the most beautiful.
Yeah. And he says, "What is this?" And of course that leads us into my favorite song. What's this?
What's this?
Okay.
Yes.
And we go to Christmas Town, which is just about as opposite of Halloween Town as you can imagine. And he just runs around and he's like, what's this stuff that's floating in the air?
Sees all the little elves working, sees all the little kids asleep in their beds.
Why are they all so happy?
Why there's no monsters under the bed?
Yeah, like what are these little bulbs on everything?
Right.
And he's completely enamored immediately, and he decides pretty quickly, I gotta go tell the townspeople about this and maybe do even more than that. So yeah, let me see. I gotta actually switch over.
The mayor is still doing the search for Jack. We have Sally is still trying to poison Dr. Finkelstein. And as they're like, they are starting to get very worried about Jack, and just as this happens, he comes back with like
and
a sled full of
a meeting immediately.
Yes, and he has a sled full of Christmas stuff.
Right. So he, I guess we pop back into Finkelstein's tower. Sally is once again successfully drugged him, so he's passed out. She goes to the meeting, and Jack.
And we have town meeting song.
Yeah, and he just tries to explain to them what Christmas is. Of course, he himself doesn't really get it yet at this point, but they're just as confused as he was.
But the way that he's describing it to them sounds spooky.
Right. I mean, they're just completely flabbergasted by the idea of a present. Like, what's in it? Like, dead stuff?
Well, yeah, they're putting the description of Christmas into their own framework of how things work, which is Halloween-y.
Yeah. The only thing that, like, maybe remotely makes sense to them is the great Christmas king, Sandy Claus.
Sandy Claus. Which is spelled like Claus.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think then we sort of cut to Jack is at home and he's just sort of stewing over trying to find the meaning of Christmas and trying to figure out how do I explain to them how magical it is.
And he's somehow gotten his hands on all of these books about Christmas.
Yeah.
Which, who knows where he got them.
It's a good question. It's a really good question.
But he's studying up on Christmas.
He had to have stolen them. It was in his bag.
Probably they were in his bag.
They were in his bag.
And then finally, the last book that he reads is The Scientific Method.
Yeah.
So he decides that he's going to go ask Dr. Finkelstein for a bunch of
lab equipment.
Exactly.
And just before he arrives there, we see that Finkelstein has had it up to here, and he locks Sally away. Later, it is revealed that cannot stop her. Mm-hmm. And to escape, she just, like...
jumps out the window.
Yeah, she jumps out the window, which is really alarming imagery.
Right.
More so as an adult, I guess, than as a kid. And... yeah, she comes prepared and just stitches herself back together.
Yeah, she's always got a needle and thread.
She's a good seamstress.
Yes.
So Jack conducts his Christmas experiments, which include, like, crushing up an ornament into bubbling liquid and seeing what happens.
See what color it turns or whatever.
Putting the ornament underneath the microscope, but then it breaks.
Yes.
He tries to replicate snowflakes, but all he can come up with is spiders.
And it ends up, and this was a really funny shot, where it's like all of these like Christmas very Christmassy objects are like suspended in formaldehyde jars. It's very funny.
So Sally, as has been established, has a little bit of a crush on Jack Skellington. So when she jumps out the window, she brings with her a picnic basket that's got like a dead fish and something else in it. And I guess just because of nerves, she delivers it to him kind of like on a rope and pulley system.
Well, yeah, it shows
hides.
She had like concocted this bottle of something for him.
Yeah, but when he pops it open, it just like sends out a little smoke butterfly.
Right.
Which I questioned, would he like butterflies?
Yeah, who knows?
I mean, are butterflies appreciated even in Halloween Town? Maybe it was a moth.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was anything like bad. I think it was just a cute little. But
so he sees her out the window.
No, I don't think he sees her.
He does, and then she's gone. I think that.
Okay, that's possible.
I think he sees her for like one glance, and then she's gone.
That's possible. But when I don't know, I didn't think she was gone. I thought she was just hiding.
Well, yeah.
Outside, because she starts playing with like a dead weed, and then she has this vision where the weed turns into a Christmas tree, and then it is all of a sudden completely engulfed in flames, and she now realizes that this is going to end terribly.
Yes. So then she obviously has a new mission to try to
prevent him from going any further.
Yes.
So then we go into the song Jack's Obsession.
Yes.
Where the townspeople are starting to notice that something is up with Jack. As they sing repeatedly.
But he's giving them all different jobs and things to do to get ready for whatever his Christmas is going to be.
Yeah. Like in that song, it finally like hits him that I think there's a line where he says like, just because I can't see it doesn't mean I can't believe it.
Yeah.
So I think he's starting to believe in the magic of Christmas, and he determines to take over the holiday.
Yes.
And then he starts doling out the tasks. Every townsperson gets their individual task.
Right.
I guess starting with Finkelstein, who he enlists to recreate the reindeer.
Right.
They're going all skeletal.
Right.
And then he summons, I think after that it's Lock, Shock, and Barrel. The little trick-or-treater kids.
Right.
So Locke is Paul Rubens, a.k.a. Pee Wee Herman.
Oh.
Yeah, which I never realized that.
I didn't know that either.
And then, let me see, Shock, the girl one, is Catherine O'Hara again, and Beryl is Danny Elfman again. But yeah, he, since I guess Tim Burton did direct Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got Paul Rubens in on this one too. So he summons the three little kids and enlists them to go retrieve Santa Claus from Christmas Town. And
they, the whole time that he's doing this, are obviously not... They are more into it in an attempt to help Oogie Boogie.
Yeah. I mean, they're just little shits through and through. I don't know what anybody else expects, but they're the worst. So yeah, he's very adamant, treat him nice, leave Oogie Boogie out of it. Of course, they decide to do the opposite and go into the song Kidnap the Santa Claus.
Yes.
And they concoct their plan of all these different ways they could torture him.
Yes.
Which I don't think they ultimately do. I think they just sing about it.
Yeah, they don't... Oh, yeah, all they do is...
Little children of the corn.
Right.
Ew. So while they set off to capture Santa, what happens?
Jack is... he's attempting to create Christmas music... So he has the band play Jingle Bells.
Oh, yeah. And he asks Sally to help him with the outfit.
Right.
Complete the look.
Uh-huh.
Just then, the little kids come back, and they've got the wrong guy.
They have the Easter Bunny.
Right. But we followed your instructions exactly. So Jack sends them back, demanding they apologize to the bunny, which I'm sure they did not do.
And then we have Making Christmas.
Yeah, but this is kind of fun. Right before we go into Making Christmas, back at Finkelstein's, he's trying to build like a better Sally, basically, which like turns up to be a replica of himself.
Right.
Which makes sense if you want somebody totally compliant. Like, give give him half your brain.
Yeah, it ends up that, yeah.
But yeah, so then we go into Making Christmas. I don't know. The gist of this song is they are making Christmas.
They're making Christmas.
And we're down to 35 days.
Uh-huh. And we have, another little solo from the Vampires. Love them.
Yeah.
So, and then in this song, we kind of have alternating shots of the real Christmas town, like getting ready for
and
real
the
Christmas.
parallel,
Right.
the dark, spooky parallel,
Right.
in Halloween Town.
And it's just like horrifying versions of what would be considered traditional Christmas things.
Like they're stuffing shrunken heads into the gift boxes.
Uh-huh.
They are stuffing like a snake creature instead of stuffing stockings.
Some sort of terrifying version of a Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
Which is already terrifying.
Exactly. Yeah. So then we fast forward to now we're only 11 days, or during that scene, it's established we're only 11 days out. And then we fast forward one more time and we're down to what I want to say is Christmas Eve. Because they refer to Christmas as the next day, but it has to be Christmas Eve in order. Anyways.
Right.
This is pedantic. It doesn't matter. It's Christmas Eve.
The trick-or-treaters have found Sandy Claus. Mm-hmm. And they're bringing him to Oogie Boogie. And then we have Oogie Boogie's song. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, in between, I think that, they do go to Jack first with Sandy Claus. Because I remember he has a line that's like, you don't have claws at all.
Oh, yeah.
And then, I think Sally
basically
tries to talk him out. Like, she tries one more time to talk him out of doing whatever it is he's about to do and doesn't listen.
And so he basically tells them, just make sure he's comfortable. After he takes his hat.
But they take him to Oogie Boogie's.
Yeah.
And then, yes, we do the Oogie Boogie song. It's very jazzy, very New Orleans. He's got a whole, casino decor situation with a giant roulette wheel and armed slot machine.
Yes.
Yeah, so... Well, I don't know. Do you have anything more to add about
No.
it? I feel like we've really run the gamut on
Oogie Boogie,
yeah.
yes.
So the townspeople, they are preparing to send Jack on his Christmas journey.
Yes. And
when a thick fog rolls in.
Sally has swiped this, fog-making potion.
Right.
That she puts into, what does she put it? Is it like a fountain or a well or something where she pours it into? Which creates a thick fog over everything. And paralleling the Christmas, not the Christmas story, but
Christmas story.
A very familiar Christmas story.
From the 50s.
It turns out that the only thing that can light the way is Zero's nose.
Yeah, which is, it's hard to notice, but it's actually a jack-o'-lantern. It's not a red or orange dot. It's got a little jack-o'-lantern
Interesting.
face.
Oh, that's cute.
Isn't it cute?
Yeah.
Details, they matter. Zero, a la Rudolph, they take off into the night. And then we go into Sally's song where she's pretty distraught over the whole, just about her feelings for Jack, which seem to be unreciprocated.
Right.
If he even notices them at all.
Right.
And she's worried about how everything is going to play out.
Right.
Yeah. It's a lovely performance by Catherine O'Hara.
And, yeah, she's a lovely singer, as anyone... I mean, if you've seen A Mighty Wind, you know this, too.
Right.
Because that song, even though obviously a hilarious movie, that song, Kiss at the End of the Rainbow, is so good.
She can do no wrong.
Yeah.
All right. So we come back over to Jack.
Yeah. And here we have a montage of him doing what he thinks is Santa duties.
Yeah. Just delivering terrifying presents.
Yes. Levitating dolls and...
Shrunken heads.
God, the shrunken head.
Like that
the snake
wooden
thing.
duck that chases them and grows teeth out of its bill. It's super spooky, and all of a sudden the police are being inundated with reports of Christmas toys attacking households.
And so they alert the military.
Yeah. Well, as was established, it's America.
Right.
So the first place you go is the police and the military.
And so then they have their, cannons firing at him, and he thinks it's a celebration. He thinks that he's
They're congratulating me.
yeah.
It's okay. Sure.
So he's finally is like, oh, you're getting a little close there. Like they're almost hitting him, and then finally, one of the reindeer gets hit, and then finally his whole sleigh is hit, and he falls out of the sky.
So Sally realizes that the only way to stop everything is to get Santa Claus.
Right.
So she goes over to Oogie Boogie's to try and save him, and this is where she detaches her leg and does just sort of sticks it out there to distract Oogie Boogie. And sexy. And it works. So while the rest of her body is getting Santa out, she's got him distracted, but he turns around just in time, before they escape.
Yes. Also, before this, somehow all of the monsters in Halloween Town they're all standing around like a cauldron or something, and
it's just a radio. Like they have a radio that
but isn't there's like something that's showing them images in the middle where it's like they can see like American TV broadcasts or something.
I don't know. It's best not to overthink it.
Right. So anyway, they are up to speed with what's going on. They don't know what happens to they don't know what has happened to Jack, but the mayor is telling everyone that he was blown to smithereens.
Yeah. I think we then go into our next song is called Poor Jack.
Yes.
And this is where Jack, having not quite yet returned to Halloween Town, is just sort of lamenting how he failed. And by the end of this song, he shifts gears and realizes
he has to set things right.
He has to set things right, but also, he's the Pumpkin King. Halloween is his domain. So he needs to surrender Christmas back to Christmas Town.
Right.
Yeah, set things right.
So he's now on the same page as Sally. So we cut back to Oogie Boogie's lair, and he has Sally and
Sandy Claus.
And Sandy Claus suspended over something.
Yeah.
Some sort of fire cauldron.
Playing like a roulette style game where with each roll of the dice, whatever the number is.
That's how many cranks you do. Yeah.
Exactly. But Jack rushes back to Halloween Town just in time. And he saves them, essentially. I mean, he gets into a battle of sorts with Oogie Boogie, and he winds up saving them when he notices that Oogie Boogie has a loose thread on his burlap sack. And Jack just simply pulls it
and then gets it caught in the mechanism,
and he unravels, and it's revealed that underneath he's just like a big collection of bugs that have somehow taken on like one brain,
yes,
and one speaking voice,
right. And that apparently there were they had to make individually hundreds and hundreds of bugs for that reveal.
I mean, just nuts.
Yeah. So the bugs scatter. They get apparently, Santa Claus has had the ability to, fly himself this whole time.
And he's, very cool about everything.
Yeah.
He's just like...
He's like, I just gotta get back.
Yeah. He says there's plenty of time...
It's Christmas.
...for him to save it.
Yes.
And he says, the next time you think about taking over a holiday, listen to her.
Right.
So, everyone's super chill about his hijacking of Christmas.
Yes.
And, then I guess we finally get our Jack and Sally. Everything's resolved, and we get our Jack and Sally moment, finally.
But as Santa Claus is flying away, he makes it snow over Halloween Town.
And that's what you were talking about earlier with, at the very end, they just sprayed the fake stuff over that, what did you call it? Spiral Mountain.
Spiral Mountain.
Yeah. Which, I mean, would have just, I can only imagine how nerve-wracking that must have been.
Right.
Because, there's no going back.
Right.
Woo! But it worked out great.
But then they showed, his little footprints are still in it.
Yeah.
And they're basically the way the spray foam worked, they just had to press his little feet down into it, and it would make little what looked like footprints. And so afterwards the animators would go back and mold a little bit of clay around each footprint to like make the like little snow piles around it. It's very, very cool.
Do you know what that reminds me of? In Phantom of the Opera, when they forgot to edit out, or no, rather they forgot to include footprints for all of the people on the snow, on the roof,
yes.
where it's snowing the whole time.
Right.
Yeah. Ugh. So bad. So bad.
So we get a
little
a reprise of like a lot of the songs that happened throughout. But Sally kind of escapes by herself and goes and sits on top of snowy Spiral Mountain, and Jack goes and finds her.
And they have their moment.
They have a moment. They sing Sally's song together and embrace and kiss, and that's the movie.
Le fin.
Fin.
Yeah, that's true. It's not. Oh, whatever. Okay, so overall rating.
Overall rating, I'm gonna give it an A. I think, considering the time and like the effort that went into it, and you know, just an overall originality, and like, and how rare is it to actually have an execution of something that is so close to what you wanted it to be.
I think done any other way, like it probably would have scared me as a child, but they somehow nailed like scary without actually being scary, if that makes sense.
Isn't that kind of like
they nailed horror, but on a really delightful level.
Isn't that kind of like, that's kind of Tim Burton's MO though, you know? It's like creating like whimsy out of
dark
horror.
Whimsy. Yeah. Henry Selick describes it as a combination of like German expressionism and Dr. Seuss.
Yes.
Yeah, which I can see.
And honestly, the initial idea was for it to be sort of a send up of, you know, the classic claymation Christmas movies.
That was the inspiration, yeah.
Of the 50s and 60s, was that when they were made? And in order to be like, what would this look like from a Halloween perspective or whatever, you know?
So I think that it is totally fair to say. It's completely accurate to say that this comes from the mind of Tim Burton.
Yes.
It would not exist without Tim Burton.
Yes.
Henry Selick says that while that is all true, he didn't really participate at all in the making of the film. He says, we saw Tim Burton 5 times in 3 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I think that, you know, rightfully so, or understandably so at least, he's a little frustrated with the fact that it's Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, because everybody thinks that Tim Burton directed it.
Right.
When he really, according to Henry Selick, didn't have that much involvement. I don't feel like I could say I couldn't go quite that far in saying he didn't really have anything to do with it, because again, it would not exist without him.
It's his brainchild.
He developed all of those characters.
Yeah. And
like you said, he came up with the drawings and the clay figures like very early on.
And the plot.
Right.
You know. I mean,
if it belongs to anybody else, I'm not going to say it's not Henry Selick, but certainly Danny Elfman should be included in the picture. But you can't call it Tim Burton's, Danny Elfman's, and Henry Selick's The Nightmare Before Christmas. You know?
Yeah.
But I also understand where Henry Selick is coming from. That must be very frustrating.
What, I mean, officially, what is Tim Burton's role?
Producer.
Like, producer.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even Tim Burton said, you know, it really became a branding thing. You know, they wanted to tie his name to it, again, out of concerns that they weren't going to hit their core audience.
Right.
And so even Tim Burton's recognized that, it was this branding thing, and I'm not sure how I feel about that.
And even, I mean, at this point, Edward Scissorhands had already come out.
What year did Edward Scissorhands come out?
Wasn't Edward Scissorhands like 89 or 90?
I don't know. I know that he had done Beetlejuice and he had done Batman. And the reason he couldn't commit fully to directing Nightmare Before Christmas, well, two reasons. One, he was working on Batman Returns, and two, he did say, like, I really don't want to get involved in stop motion because it is so tedious.
Batman Returns is incredible, by the way.
With Pfeiffer.
Michelle Pfeiffer and Danny DeVito. Edward Scissorhands was 1990.
Okay, so yes, it had come out.
Yeah. So he already had an established brand and a voice.
Right. And these were movies after he left Disney.
Right.
Like, he was doing a lot better at that point without them. The only reason he went back was because he learned, like, around 90, he wanted to start revisiting doing this project, and he realized they still have the rights.
Right.
So he had to go to Disney.
Right.
But it worked out swimmingly.
Mm-hmm.
Just wonderful. I don't think I need to say it, but I also give it an A.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an A.
We did not really talk about recasting with this one because I don't really know. Where do you even start with that?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, everyone is still alive. Also, the casting is such a part of what this movie is. Apparently, there are rumblings of a sequel, though.
Okay, so I think I've got the 411 on the sequel status. Mm-hmm. In fact, one of my favorite things about this movie is that thus far they have resisted the temptation to come up with a sequel. Because early on they were talking about maybe a Valentine's Day, since now Jack and Sally have a thing. Mm-hmm. Or maybe Thanksgiving, just because Tim Burton really likes Thanksgiving, apparently.
Oh, okay.
But ultimately, they've gone against the idea. At one point, Disney was pitching, like, a computer. At one point, Disney was pitching a computer-animated sequel, and Tim Burton shut that down.
No, you can't do that.
Ugh, would have been awful.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it keeps coming up. But the most recent development has been it was February of this year, the year of our Lord, 2021. And someone, I apologize, I don't have the name. Someone announced that they are writing maybe a graphic novel or a novella that will serve as a sequel to The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Sure, and I'm guessing...
But I mean, it's going to be I don't know, it sort of feels like the way that they came out with The Cursed Child after the Harry Potter series, and it's a sequel, but, like, is it? I'm not. I don't know.
And, you know, I mean...
It is, but it's not.
I guess they could, like, if the graphic novel or whatever does really well, that could, you know, give them the incentive to make the sequel. Or
I mean, yeah, because Henry Selick has said if Tim wanted to do it, I would do it. Chris Sarandon has said, I'll absolutely do it. But I mean, what else Chris Sarandon doing these days?
I'm sure that, I mean, Danny Elfman obviously loves the project.
Catherine O'Hara said she would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is the day of reboots.
Yes. And I would much rather have, like, they're not going to remake it. Much rather have a sequel than some sort of remake. But also, like I said, Nightmare Before Christmas is so important to Disney.
Yeah, these days.
Now that, like, I'm sure that they would love to get a sequel going or whatever, even if it's just to, like, make sure that they are retaining the IP of the whole thing.
I will say, although they've got plenty of time left on that IP.
Okay.
But I will say that I think that in this instance, Disney does respect the audience a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think they recognize that there is a cult following. Uh-huh. The only reason that it's been as successful as it's been is because of the cult following.
Right.
Like, it did fine in theaters, and it was a critical success.
Yeah.
But it wasn't huge with audiences, I think for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So I think they do owe and recognize that they owe a lot of credit to that cult following. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't think they would jump at doing just any...
It would have to. Well, yeah, it would have to be the right thing.
Yeah.
But I still don't. If it was the same team, I'd be all for it. I wouldn't. It would have to be out.
Yeah. Another Touchstone released film was Turner and Hooch, and they did bring that back as a series on Disney Plus recently.
Yeah.
It hasn't gone well. I haven't watched it.
I haven't watched it either.
I've heard it's no good.
They also brought back Doogie Howser.
Yeah, but she's Hawaiian now.
Yes,
and
I haven't watched it, but
I apologize. I don't know the name of it, but I didn't bring it up. So
it's called like Doogie MD. I don't know. It's like
No, she has a Hawaiian name.
But it's called Doogie though.
No, it's not.
I promise.
All right.
Just a second.
Okay.
I'm gonna go on my Disney Plus app.
Do it right now.
Let's see.
While you do that, I'm going to talk about awards. Mostly just the Oscar that they lost.
I found it.
What is it called?
I can't pronounce. It's Doogie Kamialoha MD.
We were both right.
See.
Yeah, no, I see. You don't have to show me. I believe you. Not like you're lying about it just to be like half right. We were both. You were right. I was right. Yeah, it's fair. Okay, so they were nominated for 1 Oscar. Mm-hmm. Best Visual Effects, first animated film to receive such a nomination. It lost to Jurassic Park.
Oh,
understandable. I know, I got to give it to them there. They got that one right.
Yeah.
There was also this movie called Cliffhanger nominated. Okay. I have not heard of it. I didn't recognize a single name.
Yeah, sounds like some sort of action movie.
I could have clicked on it. Didn't feel like it.
And there were a lot of things they were talking about in this special that I watched. Sorry to keep bringing it up, but...
Oh, wait, say it again? You watched a special. What was it called?
It's just the episode of...
no, I know.
Okay, sorry. It's called.
But say it again for anyone that's curious.
It's an episode of Prop Culture.
Okay.
On Disney Plus. This was not only just like obviously stop motion, but incorporating a lot of effects that hadn't really been done before in stop motion. They obviously had smoke and fog and fire and moving water, which I'm not exactly even sure how they did all of that.
I know they used a lot of clay and changed the texture because they wanted it to look very much like a living illustration, which I think they achieved. I know that they did do some traditional animation overlay on top of the stop motion for things like the ghosts and the, more subtle things like that.
Yeah.
And I know that they had, this to me is the most interesting, like, effect type thing they did. I don't know if it's an effect or if it's just the process, but they built all these sets and they would put trap doors underneath so that, like, a puppeteer could pop up really quick, change them, pop back down.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's a little stuff you would never, ever think about.
Yeah.
But then you get in there and realize just how difficult it is.
Well, when you think
about... And they came up with all these innovations to avoid that.
Right.
Avoid those difficulties.
But when you think about something like fog, that's not something you can control frame by frame.
Right. And they were going like 24 frames per second.
How did they do that?
Yeah.
I mean,
the fog may have been drawn over top.
Yeah, either drawn over top. I mean, this was a time when things were innovating as far as CGI, like, I don't know.
But again, it did have big special effects. I mean, the whole movie was basically special effects. And that was recognized by the Academy.
But I feel like, for the most part, what they were doing is what we consider practical effects.
Yeah, I guess special effects isn't right. It's visual effects.
Right.
There's a difference.
Right. And most of what they were doing was practical effects. But when you get into things like smoke, fog, fire, water, how do they,
or when you get into things like Tyrannosaurus Rex, Velociraptor, those ones that run really fast.
Obviously,
Brachiosaurus.
Obviously, Jurassic Park was...
Yeah.
probably the biggest innovator in special
I
effects
could do
of our
a
time.
whole podcast about Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I mean,
Love that
obviously it deserved the Oscar. I don't think there's been another movie before or since that's,
Star Wars, maybe.
yeah, that like pushed the medium
I would say Star
so
Wars.
far. Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, that's not why we're here. Do we have any final impressions?
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, loved it. I mean, just anything else that we really want to get in?
I don't think so. I mean, no.
No.
Anything else for you?
Oh, I will say, no, nah, I don't need to say that. No.
Well, thank you for joining us, everybody, for this bonus episode, getting back into the swing of things with The Hills Are Alive. We'll see you next month.
In November.
Yeah, we'll be discussing The Wizard of Oz.
Yes, Judy.
Yeah. Once again, thank you to We Own This Town for putting this out there for us.
And you can find us on Instagram at The Hills Are Alive Pod.
Thank you so much. Yay.
It was insanely noisy outside.
So
Oh yeah, all of the
you
that's when
gonna
the
do,
lawn
though?
and obviously, of course, they're gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah.